Not too long ago, Paula Deen was a relatively harmless figure. There are certain foods that are just better together. Sure, not everyone loved her brand of down-home, southern cooking, but she was still given the respect that comes with celeb status. Deen was pretty much America's culinary grandmother, with her pleasant demeanor and southern accent charming her millions of viewers. For a time, she seemed to be living the perfect life. Then, in 2013, everything changed. Accused of racism, Deen's star toppled and she disappeared from the public eye in disgrace. Her name became a running joke in the industry, and even her biggest fans were so horrified that they turned away from Deen. It was a tragic fall from grace, but Deen didn't let it stop her. Chips and salsa. The perfect snack. Though it seemed for a while that she had retired in shame, Deen instead bided her time, all while planning her return to the top. Here's what really happened to Paula Deen. A half-hearted apology didn't build any bridges for Paula Deen. Paula Deen made things even worse by trying to excuse her poor behavior. Peanut butter and jelly. The ideal quick lunch combo. And chocolate chip cookies with a big glass of milk is definitely at the top of that list as well. But you can't have a great experience with chocolate chip cookies and milk without utilizing a good cookie. That part of the equation definitely matters. And let's face it, there are some chocolate chip cookies that are just better than others. The perfect chocolate chip cookie comes in so many forms for different people. Whether you love that classic soft and chewy chocolate chip cookie or you're obsessed with having a little crunch to your cookie, there are so many options to choose from. With buttery flavors and textures and plenty of chocolate chips, grocery store chocolate chip cookie options can seem overwhelming. But we're here to help. With a gallon of milk in hand, we decided to do the heavy lifting and sample some of the most popular grocery store chocolate chip cookie options. And luckily for you, we ranked them worst to best. She said that use of the N-word was common in her era, and that she had simply been echoing the racism of her time. Grab your glass of milk and get ready to dive in. 15. Her company also released a statement trying to put a historical spin on things, attempting to excuse Deen's racism on the basis of her age. She was born 60 years ago when America's South had schools that were segregated, different bathrooms, different restaurants and Americans rode in different parts of the bus, said her company. Kroger's Simple Truth thin and crispy chocolate chip cookies. How does the idea of biting into something that tastes like chemicals sound to you? Not great? You're right. This is not today. Deen did try to make amends, but the public was not convinced of her sincerity. But unfortunately, that's what you get with these chocolate chip cookies. A cookie's a cookie, and all cookies are delicious, right? Normally we wouldn't be so cruel, but truly, we're not sure why anyone would want to eat these. The thin and crispy cookie concept certainly sounds appealing. And as a thin cookie with a crispy exterior, it pulls it off well. In a now-deleted video apology, quoted by Eater, Deen said, "I want to apologize to everybody for the wrong that I've done. I want to learn and grow from this. Truly, the texture is pretty great. Inappropriate and hurtful language is totally unacceptable." Paula Deen was kicked off the air. The public was in a fury that the seemingly sweet Paula Deen had such a sketchy past, and things started to go downhill for the chef. But what it makes up for in texture, these cookies certainly lack in flavor. The outcry was shared by Food Network, which declined to renew Deen's contract after the scandal erupted. While they did not publicly explain why they were letting her go, it seems pretty likely that the network wanted to distance themselves from Deen's tarnished image. Food Network was far from the only major company that had beef with Deen. The disgraced chef also lost a lot of her other business connections. Ballantine Books canceled her book deal, even though she had a cookbook set to be released that had become a #1 bestseller on Amazon through pre-orders alone. One bite into these cookies tastes like nothing but fake ingredients. We're not quite sure where the recipe went wrong here, but do yourself a favor and skip this option if you're looking for a cookie with anything remotely close to a homemade taste. 14. Other companies, including Walgreens, JCPenney, QVC, Walmart, and Target, announced that they would not be restocking her products once existing inventory had been sold off. More shady stuff about Paula Deen came to light after the scandal erupted. Other shady dealings from Paula Deen's past came to light. Pepperidge Farm thin and crispy dark chocolate chip cookies. Pepperidge Farm, known for its variety of breads, crackers, and cookies, started baking in 1937. Her former employee, Dora Charles, revealed a shocking story of how Deen had taken advantage of the African American woman she had called her friend and soul sister. Charles worked with Deen for decades as she built up her company, even helping to develop recipes. And while there are plenty of delicious products coming out of the Pepperidge Farm production facilities, we're looking at you, Milano cookies and Goldfish. The farmhouse thin and crispy cookies with dark chocolate chips aren't exactly at the top of the list. The chewing experience of this chocolate chip cookie is awful. Sure, they've got the thin and crispy style going for them. Deen promised that she would make Charles rich one day, but that never happened. But something is just off here. First, the cookie is actually see-through with little holes if you hold it up to the light. It's just time that everybody knows that Paula Deen don't treat me the way they think she treat me, Charles told the New York Times. And as you take a bite, munching on this cookie feels gritty, without a pleasant, even texture. The flavor, however, is delicious. These cookies offer a lovely buttery experience with bold bites of dark chocolate chips mixed in and the perfect ratio of chips to cookie. But the flavor certainly isn't enough to make up for the texture of this cookie. 13. She was living in a trailer park at the time. Even after Deen hit the big time and had become a Food Network star, she continued paying Charles less than $10 an hour for years. Grandma's chocolate chip cookie. The Grandma's Cookies brand is one that a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with. Charles said that she also frequently heard Deen using racial slurs. "I'm not trying to portray that she is a bad person," she said. "I'm just trying to put my story out there that she didn't treat me fairly and I was her soul sister." Another racist photo made things even worse for Paula Deen. Things might have blown over sooner if it had turned out that Paula Deen's racism really was far in her past. The brand launched in Portland, Oregon in 1914, so it's definitely been around the block a time or two when it comes to making cookies. Instead of learning from the mistakes of her youth, however, it seemed that Deen kept quite a few bad habits well into her later years, and may have even passed them on to her kids. In 2015, a photo from 2011 was posted on Deen's Facebook and Twitter. Snack giant Frito-Lay Inc. ended up buying the brand in 1980, expanding the distribution of Grandma's cookies extensively by 1983. With Frito-Lay Inc. In it, Deen and her son, Bobby, are dressed up as Lucy and Ricky Ricardo from the classic show I Love Lucy. Having so many products in vending machines and at the grocery store checkout line, it's not surprising to find a variety of Grandma's cookies on display when you need a snack. But if the only option for flavors is Grandma's chocolate chip, we suggest you skip it. These big, soft cookies come 2 to a pack. That might seem harmless until you notice that Bobby painted his face dark brown to portray Ricardo, who was of Latino descent. The public was outraged at the application of brown face, and allegations of racism were again made against both Deen and her son. And while the texture is pretty good, the color and flavor of these cookies are a little alarming. There's a bit of an unnatural look to them, with an orangey hue, and that's all due to the caramel color added in. We're not quite sure why a chocolate chip cookie would need to have color added to it, but between that and the 10 grams of fat in the package, it's just not worth it. 12. Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies. Many kids through the years have felt like Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies were the best snack in the entire world. Deen removed the photo after it proved to be controversial, and fired her social media manager, who she says posted the photo. Paula Deen makes a killing hosting parties. Over the years, Paula Deen has obviously found ways to make money, even if she no longer has a Food Network show or lucrative partnerships with big box stores. But few of them are making us scratch our heads more than her Halloween spectacular. And probably, at that time, they really were. In a move that we could never imagine the likes of Ina Garten doing, Deen is making fistfuls of easy money hosting Halloween parties. But here's the kicker, the parties, with 50 random people each, are not at an event center, or even one of her restaurants. They're at her home. According to Eventbrite, Paula will spend the afternoon mingling with guests, sharing spooky recipes, hosting festive contests, and wrapping up the afternoon with a Halloween party.
Need proof that Deen's fans have more than forgiven her? The 4-hour event was so popular that a second date had to be added, and at $400 a pop, the tickets aren't exactly cheap. No saying how much of it goes directly into Deen's pocket, but $40,000 for 8 hours of work isn't too shabby. Paula Deen was trying to unload her mansion. Does the listing of her Savannah, Georgia mansion say anything about Paula Deen's financial situation? We may never know the real reason she put up her Riverbend property up for sale, whether out of necessity or just to pad her pockets, but we do know that as of October 2019 it hasn't made her a dime. The massive 8-bedroom, 8.5-bathroom, 28,000-square-foot French provincial estate, complete with 2 guest cottages, a dock house, 300 feet of waterfront, and countless other amenities, has been on the market since May 2015 when it was listed for $12.5 million. Often handed out at classroom parties or even after soccer practice, these individually packaged treats have been a staple since they came on the market in 1975. 2 years later, the home had still not sold, and the price was reduced a whopping 30%, to $8.75 million, but even the massive price drop hasn't prompted a sale. Eventually, it was removed from the market, but chances are she'd still jump at decent offer. Given Deen's current net worth, a cool $14 million, according to CelebrityNetWorth.com, we can probably assume that she can afford it, scandal be damned, but the next buyer may be looking at forking over about $44,000 per month to live like Paula. Paula Deen is breaking back into the business world after being removed from the air. Paula Deen turned her attention to her existing restaurants, and some new ones. In 2014, a year after the scandal, Deen started a new firm, Paula Deen Ventures. But let's face it, we didn't know any better but to think they were incredible. Shortly after that, she announced a new 20,000-square-foot restaurant and store called Paula Deen's Family Kitchen. The new restaurant helped keep her business afloat. Paula Deen's Family Kitchen soon opened more locations and, as of this writing, operates in Tennessee, South Carolina, Texas, Alabama, and Florida. Scandal or not, Deen was determined to prove that her cooking skills were still deserving of respect. Paula Deen's Family Kitchen is filled with love and mouthwatering flavors, she said in a press release. But we've learned our lesson. These little bite-sized cookies are most often found in individually packaged servings, with a handful of cookies in each. They also come in boxes, offering a few more cookies to munch. I can hardly wait to bring some of my favorite southern dishes. But do you really want more? Certainly, these little cookies will do in a pinch, but overall, they're pretty dull. They're dry, crumbly, and don't offer much. The flavor is decent, with a few chocolate chips in each mini cookie, but overall, they could do better. 11. Kroger Chipmates chocolate chip cookies. Have you ever bitten into a chocolate chip cookie, and it just seemed to be too much of a task? Are the calories even worth it if you have to work for it? That's what it feels like biting into these Kroger Chipmates chocolate chip cookies. Taking a bite into one of these chocolate chip cookies presents such a crisp bite. To the Great Smoky Mountains. If you prefer softer cookies, these definitely aren't for you. Strangely, it actually takes a lot of effort to eat them. And once you take that bite, even the chocolate chips seem to be too tough to chew. We are going to serve our meals family style, with big old bowls on the table, heaping full of fried chicken, collards, fried okra, corn and sweet potatoes. Paula Deen launched a clothing line with unique features. The news of Paula Deen's scandal prompted announcements from many of her partners that their endorsement deals were over, but that didn't stop the once beloved Southern cook from finding new companies to partner with. The texture is certainly too hard to be enjoyed on their own, so a cold glass of milk is definitely a must with these cookies. The flavor is decent, but the ratio of chocolate chips to cookie is kind of off-putting, with, dare we say it, too many chips in each bite. 10. In 2016, Deen launched a clothing line with Avene, which was something she said she'd been wanting to do for years. It was a little hard for me to break out of the kitchen because that's how people think of me, she told People. Keebler Chips Deluxe Original Chocolate Chip Cookies. Every time we think of Keebler cookies, it's hard not to think of the cute little elves that represent these cookies. Surely they work hard to put together a great cookie, right? Well, we think the elves could do a little better when it comes to the Keebler Chips Deluxe cookies.
Keebler is definitely well known for its fudge stripe cookies, along with its Girl Scout cookie copycats like Coconut Dreams and Grasshoppers. Producing a chocolate chip cookie almost seems like an afterthought, and it comes through in the product. These cookies are thick and crunchy, and frankly, a bit dry. But if you notice, I never cook naked. Certainly, the addition of plenty of chocolate chips always makes a cookie better, but these still fall a bit short. Perhaps it's from the artificial flavoring that's added to the semi-sweet chocolate being used? Overall, it's a mediocre cookie, and a glass of milk is a must when enjoying these cookies. 9. Chips Ahoy! Chewy chocolate chip cookies. At the point, we may always take our chewy store-bought chocolate chip cookies for granted. It seems like they've been gracing grocery store shelves forever, but they've actually only been around since the 1980s. And when chewy cookies came on the market, it was a bit of a war. The chewy cookie was revolutionary, and it made a huge splash. Multiple brands were vying for the soft cookie crown, and Chips Ahoy's version was certainly one of those that was front and center. The cookie debuted in 1983 and has held strong ever since. That original recipe that brought Chips Ahoy Chewy to fame is certainly decent. I was always wearing clothes. Speaking of not being naked, Deen had some very specific requirements for her line. I don't know how to say this to you in a nice way, but it has to cover my front privates, she said. I want my shirt tail to cover my front privates and hopefully my back too. I am aware of catfish belly arms. Have you ever seen a catfish? You know how they have a smooth floppy belly on them? Well, that's what we refer to as catfish belly arms. Okay, then. She also, inexplicably, launched a line of home storage and organization products with Jacari, because who doesn't want official Paula Deen hangers for those shirts that cover your front privates? A stint on Dancing with the Stars kept Paula Deen in the public eye in 2015. Paula Deen was once more in the public eye, returning to television as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. She did not prove to be as good on the dance floor as she is in the kitchen, but her good-natured attitude on the show helped to once again endear her to the public. But that's about as far as the praise goes. She took some daring risks on the show, wearing provocative outfits and even flashing her underwear in the middle of a dance. Unfortunately, Deen's edgy moves didn't go over well with the judges and she was eliminated in the 6th week of the show. The chef met her loss with grace and said that she was happy to head home. The texture is perfectly soft, and we love everything about that, but the flavor is slightly artificial. We get it, they're from a factory, but perhaps they go a little too far with the questionable ingredients label. 8. Chips Ahoy Thins Chocolate Chip Cookies. The second half of the 2010s was all about thin chocolate chip cookies. Perhaps it's a way to offer a cookie that seems healthier to those who want to indulge, or maybe it's an attempt to match up to the popularity of Tate's Bake Shop thin cookies. I'm excited, she said on air via Eater. I get to go see my grandbabies. She added, it has been such a wonderful journey. It took them a long time to convince me to do this. It was wonderful. It was worth it. Paula Deen embarrassed her family on a game show. If you thought front privates was the only cringe-worthy thing Paula Deen has said since her racist remarks came to light, you would be wrong, so very wrong. She doubled down on the awkward comments during her appearance on Celebrity Family Feud in 2016, when she was asked by host Steve Harvey to name something people know about beavers. You can probably see where this is headed. Before giving her final answer, Deen talked it through to herself, saying, well, down south, we got a name for something, which elicited a forceful, no, from one of her sons. Chips Ahoy launched its version in the summer of 2016, and it has fared well ever since, with multiple flavors of thin cookies debuting over time. The original lineup of thins, of course, started with the original Chips Ahoy cookies with a chocolate chip flavor. And we're sure glad it did. The package is jam-packed with small little cookies. But then, standing right next to her family, she went for it, men like him. Grown both Harvey and son Bobby visibly grimaced, presumably along with the rest of the audience and all of America, prompting her to exclaim, wait, maybe I should change my answer, my sons are dying, Steve. I've embarrassed my sons. Unsurprisingly, Deen's answer was not on the board. Paula Deen revamped her cookbooks. And these little cookies have such a great thin, crispy texture. And got into gaming. Paula Deen also turned her attention to her cookbooks. Starting in 2015, she began releasing new and revamping old cookbooks. In 2015, she released Paula Deen Cuts the Fat, which featured healthier recipes than those included in her previous cookbooks. That same year her very first cookbook, The Lady and Sons Savannah Country Cookbook, was re-released. The flavor of these cookies does seem a bit artificial, and perhaps that's due to the actual inclusion of artificial and natural flavor in the ingredients, but it isn't overwhelming. For a thin and crispy cookie from the grocery store shelves, it's definitely a solid choice. 7. Chips Ahoy Original Chocolate Chip Cookies. Of course, we couldn't put this list of cookies together without the OG of store-bought chocolate chip cookies. Chips Ahoy Original Chocolate Chip Cookies have been on the market since 1963, and they've definitely been a staple in plenty of household pantries ever since. When they debuted, the claim was that these packaged cookies tasted just as delicious as a homemade batch of cookies, even though they were produced in a factory. Through 2017, she continued to release or re-release 2 books a year. Determined to keep her brand alive, Deen also launched a mobile game in 2015 where players got to play as the chef herself, learning recipes and moving up in the virtual restaurant industry as they complete Match 3 challenges. That's a tall glass of milk to live up to, isn't it? But time and time again, Chips Ahoy! Holds its own as a classic. This childhood favorite offers the ideal crunch in a thick cookie. I am a gamer at heart and never leave my home without my iPad, she said in a press release. The cookie is flavorful, with the perfect amount of chocolate chips. It's not quite as buttery and delicious as other options ranking higher on this list, but Chips Ahoy! Forever remains a great classic for dunking in a glass of milk. 6. Paula Deen's Recipe Quest is an incredible and one-of-a-kind game that will allow y'all to cook up a storm with me while solving exciting puzzles. Plus, it's free. Paula Deen got into the pet food business given the success that fellow celebrity chef Rachel Ray has seen with her pet food brand. It's no wonder that Paula Deen decided to follow suit with a line of her own pet food, treats, and toys in 2015 when she partnered with Hugs Pet Products. I want to share my love for animals with my fans and fellow pet lovers by creating special products and treats for their pets to enjoy, Deen said. But there's another reason this project is near and dear to her heart. Announcing the product launch on her website, she wrote, "Y'all know how much I love all my babies, whether furry or feathered. Some of y'all might even know that if it wasn't for my pets, I would never have met my husband Michael. How's that? Well, they credit Paula's dogs for their meeting. Walmart Great Value Classic Chippers Chocolate Chip Cookies. If there's one thing that Walmart's Great Value brand does well, it's mimic other brand name products. According to Delish, they were neighbors when Deen's dogs wandered into his backyard. But the company certainly does it in its own way. Talk about a fairy tale. The truth about Paula Deen's marriage rumors have swirled for years that Paula Deen and Michael Groover were headed for divorce, thanks in large part to tabloid reports of Groover's alleged affair with a sexy middle-aged brunette. The fire was further fueled a few years later when Deen granted the deed to one of their homes solely to Groover. At the time, a spokesman for Deen said, "These rumors are completely false, they have a wonderful marriage. And this alternative to the Chips Ahoy! Original cookie is, dare we say it, actually better than the original. These chocolate chip cookies are baked in a similar, crispy, crunchy format as Chips Ahoy! Original cookies, but we think the texture of these classic chippers actually outranks the classic blue packaged cookies. Biting into the cookie, it's crispy and crumbly, but in a great way, making for the perfect pairing with a glass of milk while still being able to enjoy these cookies on their own. The chocolate chips are plentiful, making that ratio of cookie to chocolate chip just about perfect. This deed of gift was just a part of Paula's estate planning process. So what does Deen have to say? She spoke to Radar Online during her stint on Dancing with the Stars, and had nothing but good things to say about Groover. The flavor is buttery without going overboard, and the chocolate chips are perfectly sweet without being overwhelming. 5. Kirkland Thin and Crispy Chocolate Chip Cookies. If you want a ton of great cookies for a good price, of course, Costco is the way to go. These cookies were spotted by the Costco connoisseur in early September 2020 at their local Costco store. My marriage has always been good. The cookies have been debuting in warehouse stores all over, and we are so glad. If you have a crush on Kirkland products, these definitely fit the bill. And with such a craze surrounding thin and crispy cookies, these are easily closing in on the top spot. My husband is so supportive. He has a huge career. They taste very similar to Tate's Bake Shop chocolate chip cookies with their perfect thin and crispy texture. And with that texture comes the most delicious buttery vanilla flavor. And the ratio of chocolate chips is, of course, perfect. He is a harbor pilot. Our only qualm with these cookies is that they come in little 1-ounce pouches. All these ships come in from all over the world and he gets on them and he parks them on the Savannah River. He has been so good about taking time off for me, she gushed. Sure, there's 30 to the box so we could eat multiple pouches if we really wanted to, but we wish there was an option for a whole sleeve of these cookies instead. 4. Pepperidge Farm Montauk Milk Chocolate Chip Cookies. When cookie companies started to debut soft and chewy cookies from their factories, it was a bit revolutionary. He has always been so supportive to take his things and put them aside to be with me. Paula Deen's Lumberjack Feud. In 2018, the chef opened Paula Deen's Lumberjack Feud in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. But nobody could have guessed how much that concept would be expanded since then. But given all of the competition on the market for chocolate chip cookies, we're certainly glad Pepperidge Farm decided to take a stab at a soft-baked cookie. It sounds like a battle between the chef and a bunch of men wearing plaid, but is actually a popular live show providing wholesome family entertainment. Because what the company came up with is absolutely delicious. These cookies are super soft. Truly, the texture is amazing. The competitive event features two teams of professional lumberjack athletes who compete in a test of skills, going head-to-head in such events as rolling logs, climbing poles, and other outdoor events. Deen isn't the first celeb to have her name attached to Lumberjack Feud. It originally debuted in 2011, and in 2015, country singer Dolly Parton took over before passing the torch over to Deen. The flavor of the chocolate chips is slightly off, with a bit too much sweetness coming through. It's definitely not a homemade flavor from these cookies, but it's pretty darn close considering they weren't made in Grandma's kitchen. They don't pair as well with milk as other, crunchier cookies do, but they still hold up well with a good dip if that's your preferred method of eating cookies. 3. Entenmann's chocolate chip cookies. Entenmann's has a way of making us feel like we're actually buying from a bakery. According to the Lumberjack Feud website, fans will soon be able to compete in lumberjack events themselves through Lumberjack Feud Adventure. And given the packaging they put these baked treats in, it's pretty close. These boxes are filled with sweet little cookies, and the texture is spot on. The new Lumberjack Feud feature will boast an aerial playground for kids, a lumberjack-themed adventure park, a zipline roller coaster, and an 80-foot jump tower. Paula Deen is easing her way back onto TV. Paula Deen seems to have mostly put the past behind her, and the public is slowly forgiving her. If you've ever baked a batch of soft chocolate chip cookies and then pulled them out of the oven just as they begin to brown, then you know that this is the trick to a soft and gooey center of a cookie. In 2014, she launched the subscriber-based digital network the Paula Deen Network, which featured network-exclusive videos of Deen and her guests cooking in front of an audience. In 2016, she began filming her newest television show, Positively Paula. The show, which is filmed at the chef's home in Savannah, Georgia, was originally broadcast in 40 areas around the country. I am so excited to invite my friends from around the country into my home kitchen each week, Deen said at the time of the show's launch via Delish. And this doughy cookie captures that so well. We are going to have an incredible time cooking up a storm and sharing the most special memories. It wasn't too long before the show gained a following and reached a broader audience. The softness of the cookie is perfect, just like a homemade version, and the flavor of these cookies is well balanced and delicious. With how good these are, we wish that they were bigger so we didn't have to eat a whole box to feel satisfied, oops. And because the ratio of chocolate chips to cookie definitely matters, we do wish there were a few more in these cookies. But overall, they're a solid staple. 2. Pepperidge Farm Sausalito Milk Chocolate Macadamia Chocolate Chip Cookies. We know, these aren't within the parameters for pure chocolate chip cookies, but hear us out.
Early in 2018, the show entered syndication and began airing on RFD-TV, marking Deen's return to cable programming, and maybe the start of her journey back into our hearts. Believe us, they're worth it to bend the rules just a little bit. While these aren't your classic chocolate chip cookies, these are hands down the best cookies to enjoy with milk. And it's not even out of necessity, as it might be with some of the drier chocolate chip cookie options. These cookies truly pair well with milk because of their unique and delicious crispy texture. And yes, they're still good on their own. Unlike a thin and crispy cookie, these crunchy cookies have some heft to them in the best way possible. They're thicker than your average chocolate chip cookie, and they offer such great texture, leading to a melt-in-your-mouth experience. The flavor of the cookie is delightful, and the huge chunks of milk chocolate and macadamia nuts in the mix make the cookie that much better. 1. Tate's Bake Shop Chocolate Chip Cookies. Certainly, the Tate's Bake Shop brand has come a long way since founder Kathleen King started baking on her family farm at the age of 11. But the result is nothing short of magical. King started baking as a young girl and sold her cookies at a roadside stand. According to an interview with Business Insider, King would sell 6 cookies for 59 cents, and she continued to grow her business from there. 10 years later, King rented a bakery when she was 21, and she ran a wholesale business with her cookies. But after a business failure, it was time to start over, and King launched Tate's Bake Shop in 2000. Considering these cookies topped our list, we're sure glad that King persevered and continued moving forward with her cookie business. These chocolate chip cookies have the most incredible buttery, caramel vanilla flavor with the perfect balance of chocolate chips. The thin and crispy texture is well balanced to the point that biting into the cookie takes you from a crunchy exterior to a semi-soft center, making the experience that much better. Our only complaint is that there are only 14 cookies in the package, and that bright green bag always leaves us wishing for more.